Welcome to our latest episode of Compass Coffee Talk. We'll be getting started shortly as people come on in the door. I'm your co-host, Stephen Hoffman, principal of Compass Natural. We're a boutique marketing, brand strategy, and public relations agency serving the natural products industry. And we're very, very pleased to bring our guest today onto the show, Pat Sheridan, the president and CEO of the Independent Natural Food Retailers Association. A very important component of the natural products industry, really the backbone of the natural products industry is the independents. My co-host, Bill Capsalis, Executive Director of Naturally Boulder. Good morning, Bill. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everyone.
And Pat, thank you for joining us. I'll share with our audience, again, as they're coming in the door, that Pat right now is involved in a family reunion with 7 other siblings. So 4 sons and 4 daughters.
That's right.
All getting together. We think that's wonderful and just want to thank you for taking time with us and with the industry community, because if it's one thing we understand, it's how important time is with family today, right?
Absolutely.
Also, before we get in, I'm just going to thank our sponsors that make this show happen, and thank you, our audience. I mean, we're, again, pleasantly surprised at the response to our monthly webcasts that we kind of started out of necessity as this pandemic locked us all down in our industry, and we needed a way for us to stay in touch and communicate and learn and network. And Bill and I are both just so grateful for your viewership and for staying in touch with us. You know, natural products retailers continue to see growth despite an unpredictable economic climate. And certainly we're seeing a supply chain in flux. I'm writing about it a lot. 2 years ago, it wasn't that big a phrase. Today, it's a phrase you see in the news every day. But, you know, interestingly enough, according to the Natural Foods Merchandise Center and our friends at New Hope Network, their annual market overview showed that the independent retailers and small chains actually showed among the strongest growth in the industry in last year at 6.5% growth, way outpacing the large supernaturals. And of course, we saw significant growth in e-commerce, but still, I think this statistic is very significant. And, you know, Bill will go into that a little further, where we thought the independents perhaps were on the ropes. Interestingly enough, there's been a surge in interest in health, immunity, and all the products that the natural products industry, guess what, has been talking about for over 100 years, right? The relationship between diet and health.
Right.
So we're very, very pleased to have Pat. Pat served as the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of the Independent Natural Food Retailers Association for many years. One of our friends and colleagues, Corinne Schindler, served as the director for many years. She retired, I think about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and Pat is now serving as the president and the CEO. And what better officer to have than someone that's so familiar with the financials of the organization. INFRA currently represents 300 member retailers, 17 associate retailers operating more than 400 stores in just about every state in the country, with combined annual sales of over $2 billion. So this is a powerful group of retail stores out there. So I want to leave it to Bill to start us off with questioning. But Pat, again, thank you for joining us. And we're going to get inside the head of the independent retailers right now, some of the opportunities and the challenges that they are facing as well.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And welcome, Pat, and welcome all of our viewers. So it's just so interesting, Pat, like people don't really know about INFRA. There's still a lot of like, what is that? And maybe you could just give us a quick overview. What is INFRA? What do you do? What's the work that you do? And first of all, how are you doing in this pandemic? You're surviving okay. It seems like you're doing well, visiting family. That sounds great.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And you know, INFRA is started out in 2015 or 2005. I'm sorry, we went only 6 years, but I had heard when I joined INFRA that a lot of people don't know who INFRA is. And 2 years ago, we went through a rebranding effort. And this year, we've really focused on getting word out. We're more participative in Expo East at a higher level. And this opportunity to share with folks is always important. So, INFRA is a purchasing cooperative at heart, purchasing and services. Our 300 retailers each own one share of common stock of our cooperative. And just like a grocery cooperative, they're the owners. They provided capitalization to start the organization, and they share in the profits. And so each year as we grow INFRA, we grow our opportunities, and those INFRA members are actually stakeholders in our organization.
Interesting. So how does someone become a member of INFRA?
So there's a set of criteria, and they're got more guidelines than hard and fast, but we do have independent in our name. I often say to people, we're an oxymoron. We're a cooperative of independence, and so the independent factor right now, what we say is you're more than 50% independently owned. So most of our member stores are owned by an individual, potentially a couple or a family group, and then sometimes they have outside investors, but they aren't institutional investors. So that kind of sets the stage, the ownership model. And then if you sell at least 40% natural and organic grocery in your store, you automatically qualify if you're a store who desires to move that direction. Steve brought up earlier how independents have really fared better than chains and a lot of conventional stores, and conventional independents are doing great, but some of them are thinking they can move into our arena, and they're knocking on our door to have us help them get there.
Why do you think the independents grew at such a rapid clip over the last year or so? What happened?
You know what? Yeah, I think, and you hit on that customer experience. Our members have a strong connection to their customers, and that's part of it. But if you think back to when the pandemic first came and there was a run on shelves, those early days, and then there was also a run on wellness, right? And independents were poised well to have the wellness products, so people flocked to those stores. Conventional stores experienced the out of stocks faster. And once our independents had new customers, those new customers found themselves, like many of us, going to a new store and saying, wow, this is a great experience. And I don't have to make a 60-minute commitment for a 10-minute shopping trip. And they've really been, the vast majority of our members are still growing this year, which is, I think 2 years ago, none of us would have predicted it. And really that change in customer habit is important and been helpful.
You mentioned this run on wellness. What's the lasting trend from that you're seeing now going into 2022?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously the run on wellness then became a run on wellness buying online. And some wellness brands were really open to that. Some had a hard time controlling their minimum advertised pricing during that, but many of them who are focused on the natural channel really protected their brands. Certainly there are people, and even before the pandemic, people were showrooming, in other words, checking prices after they found a product. But right now we're seeing a move back again to independence on wellness and wellness growth because the expertise is there. So there's just too much information on the internet. And so now they go to a trusted source, and we're seeing wellness sales uptick again at independents.
That's really interesting. And I mean, like, feel like that's a good place to go when you want information. Someone's there to talk to you. The stores are staffed by the people that own and run them, which is really super cool. And they've been in it for a long time, and they've seen a lot of products come and go. I mean, thinking about that, Pat, what's it like if you're a brand out there and you're thinking about your distribution sales strategy? How do you work with independents? What's your advice to them?
We had conversations at Expo East with several brands about this, and of course we get interest shown in INFRA, and especially after a call like this, we'll get more interest. And we do have a team of category managers that review brands. But I think that kind of a set the stage even before you may contact INFRA is find out at INFRA at our website if there's a store in your area or two. Sure. And they're going to be a lot easier to get space on shelf than maybe one of the supernaturals or large chains. And those companies do that also, but the independents will actually feature that local brand, get a little traction, get the interest of INFRA, but then also probably a broker. A broker can really help expand, and we have strong relationships with many brokers. That's the early stages, and then of course the startup brand's holy grail is how do we promote with INFRA, because that really gets a lot of traction for their brand. We are working on new product promotion opportunities all the time. We just finished one in the Southwest that went well, but we're going to modify that model. So at the very beginning, if you think you're ready to actually sell product across the country or within a region, then reach out to INFRA, and someone there will definitely spend time to help those brands understand how to get there.
And great. I just listed your website, Pat, naturalfoodretailers.net in the chat box.
Right. So Pat, really just a quick follow-up on that, like getting connected with INFRA. So as I understand it, I'm an independent brand, I'm small, I want to get into my store, I check and see if there's an independent near me, and then I hook in with you guys nationally, and then you kind of help me get connected with the buying process. And do I assume that once I get into a few local independent retailers that I then have access to other independent retailers? How does that work?
Well, that's a fair question. I will say one of the great things about the INFRA community is they truly are a community. Our retailers speak to each other, visit each other's stores. We do right now virtual share group opportunities, although we did have an in-person event this fall where we had about 25 folks in from larger store retailers to share best practices, talk about just what we're talking about today. And we'll be doing more of those. And that's where the brands that really do well at shelf are shared. They just really are. Or if you go into a store and you get into a local shelf and it's going well, ask them if they'll introduce you. They will be happy to.
Interesting. That's a great approach.
If I may, Bill, you spoke earlier about that it's a co-op structure. Mm-hmm. And I think that brings kind of like a double binding strength to this. Not only is it an association of independents, but it's set up in kind of a co-op structure. Can you speak to the power of the co-op? Because again, that was another form of business that really helped start the modern day natural products industry, but we don't see as many of those structures as we did in the past. And yet I think there's a power in it, which is why I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. In that cooperative structure at our level, as opposed to at the store level, and you're right, there aren't as many food cooperatives, although the food cooperatives that exist, and they're united as a cooperative with the National Co-op Grocers, who happen to be down the street from us.
And NCGA, right?
Yep,
National
right.
Co-op Grocers. Mm-hmm.
And those co-ops tend to be a little larger stores, and they're community owned. Our stores are still part of the community and locally owned. But then that power of the co-op for us is not just that buying power, but that ability to be connected beyond your local community and still maintain that local food system, if you will, because we can't get around the fact that there's that huge industrial complex that moves food around the world, but we can choose to stay focused locally or regionally, and our members do that.
Yeah.
Do you ever work with brands then kind of on a national level where all stores would have access to some kind of promotion or some partnership with the brand?
Sure, absolutely. We have 5 regional grocery flyers, sale flyers every month, but those combine into a national. So many of those promoted brands are actually happening across the whole country.
Got it. And quick question from the Q&A room from our friend Kelly Strong. She wants to know about KeHE. And I guess the question really is, do you work with distributors like KeHE?
We do. We actually have our core national primary supplier agreement is with KeHE. That agreement we entered into 2 years ago. The majority of our members are on that agreement, and some of our members, because they're independents, choose to have either their own deals or to structure mainly with UNFI. We also still have a strong relationship with UNFI. Our promoted products are also promoted through UNFI.
Got it. Pat, I want to make sure we don't miss the opportunity to talk about your work with OTA. Can you share a little bit about what's happening with that work you're doing there?
And for those, most people know, but right, it's the Organic Trade Association representing the organic products industry.
Yeah, what's happening with you and them?
So, 2 years ago, I went to I joined up with one of my coworkers who is no longer with INFRA, but is still active in the organic world, Mindy Jeffries. And she said, you really got to come to Advocacy Week in DC. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. And it opened my eyes. I mean, the process that the OTA has gone through to try to work with our government bodies, and we all know it's a slow, consistent process. But we spent the day on Capitol Hill. We talked to representatives. We talked about getting laws changed and strengthening organic, and it got me hooked on the organization. And when an opportunity came to join the Retailer Council, I jumped at it. And this year I've served, actually the last 2 years, as secretary of the Retailer Council. The first year pandemic hit, work kind of slowed down, but our core work that we're finishing this year is a complete rewrite and modernization of the GORP manual, which is Good Organic Retail Practices. That'll be coming out. It should be coming out before the end of the year. It'll be online at the OTA, and there are other opportunities for that. And that's really been our core focus. And part of that is looking at, well, what does that mean to a retailer to be certified as a retailer? Not many are, frankly, or they may have department certified. And it's one of the things that I truly believe could be a strong differentiator for independents if they were to actually go through the process to get certification.
Huh.
Wow. I attended and actually helped lead a seminar on organic hemp at Advocacy Days, I think 2018 or 19. But it really, and we walked the halls and met with congressional offices. I recommend it to anyone in the organic industry. I really felt a part of our democratic process in so participating.
Yeah, I agree. And it's happening again in February. It got deferred, of course, because nobody was traveling and nobody was in person. And I'm going again. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good.
Great. Hey, a quick question. Do you have stores in Canada that are members?
We don't. Right now, our charter, if you will, our bylaws limit us to the United States and territories. And we did welcome our new member this year, first from Puerto Rico. So not only off the mainland, but not in one of the states, but we're in 45 of the 50 states also.
What's the store in Puerto Rico? Do you remember its name?
Yep, they're called Fresh Mart. They have 7
Fresh Mart.
Yep.
Oh, wow, all around the island.
They have a great operation. And actually the owner of Fresh Mart came to our large store share group, and then he brought a whole team to Expo East. And it's really been somewhat eye-opening for us, because as an island entity, just like our members who are on islands off of Seattle and members of that are on Hawaii, for instance, there's a whole different way because your food comes on a ship, right? and if you get a missed shipment, it's a game changer. And they've structured an organization that's extremely efficient. So it's been really great for our team to be able to experience what they're doing.
Well, you segue right into, has supply chain been something you've had to wrangle with? Talking about shipments, container loads.
We don't directly. We do it with our partner KeHE, and we do it with our brand partners because they're very open about the challenges they've had, because it's important for us to know and be able to communicate to our members that whether or not that that chocolate's actually going to be there right in 3 months. And I think in all of the businesses during the pandemic in the natural channel, I think distribution and supply chain has been the #1 challenge. And I imagine it's exhausting. It's exhausting just supporting our partners with members, and our members are challenged daily. It's constantly happening.
Well, I remember that day. It was like March 5th or 6th, walking into a natural grocers in Boulder and seeing the shelves just about empty, and realizing the natural products industry was really on the front line of this pandemic crisis. And I think a lot of the stores in your association, and I'm not saying this to pander, I think have really shown some heroics through this. And it's amazing, despite again the challenges which continue, I want to also make note of the resilience that we've seen. And have you seen that, and anything you might mark on that among your independent members?
I absolutely have, and I will say that frontline mentality was there, and because we have communications set up so our members can share with each other right now on a listserv. And I remember those days too, and the listserv blew up, if you will. And the conversations were, what are you doing? How are you protecting your employees? And that's before we had any kind of guidance, right, from CDC or anybody else. It was kind of like everybody shut down. It's like, what? And so it was fascinating to be a part of those conversations and how it quickly spread to where these independents were all doing what the chains started doing about 6 weeks later. They were already doing it, right? And the resilience is a huge factor. And we have stores as small as, from a sales standpoint, less than $1 million. And then we have our largest that are groups that are 80 to 90 million. If you think about that, those $1 million stores, they don't have a lot of staff. And we could talk a long time about staffing issues, but they're impacted the same. And sometimes it's 2 people that tend to run the store, and suddenly it's 2 people trying to run a store with supply chain problems, and a shipment didn't show up, and the customers are standing in a line outside, right? But they're still here. They're still here, and I'm always inspired by members when I have a conversation. And it's like, how are you? I'm stressed. I'm exhausted. But you know what? It's okay. It's pretty good.
And we know labor is also compounding the issues. And that is a lengthy discussion. Bill, you got other items?
I got a question for you, Pat, and it's just a fun one. But Steve talks a lot about how these stores are the roots of our industry. They've been around for a long time. What's the age of the oldest INFRA member? How long has that store been around? Do you know?
I do, actually, because 2 years ago at our last in-person conference, he received that award. And so it's Martindale's outside of Philadelphia, and they were 150 then, so they're 152 years they've been in business, which is 152 years.
Well, some of the earliest apothecary brands that are still selling in natural food stores are around that time.
Yes.
And then, of course, we had, kind of the birth of the modern day health food stores, which led to a lot of the independence, was Margaret Isley in Denver in the 50s, Gaylord Hauser, Paul Bragg, Jack LaLanne. I mean, they really, drove the health food movement in the 50s, which led again to the kind of the hippies of the 60s, bringing it more into natural foods. And, again, to today's independent environment. So we're just so thrilled to hear of the growth of the independents through this. And we know that it's taken a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get through all of this. And we're glad to see the independents thrive. One thing I forgot to do, Bill, that I want to make sure I do is, and Pat, if you'll allow me, I want to thank our sponsors that make Compass Coffee Talk happen, and that's Genius Food. They're a probiotic gut-loving bread, delivers a host of health benefits. You can find them at Sprouts and other leading and hopefully independent natural food stores nationwide, right? Presence Marketing, the leading independent brokerage firm for the natural products industry, stalwart sponsor, someone we love collaborating with. And then, Bill, thank you, Naturally Boulder.
You're welcome.
Naturally San Diego, thank you down in San Diego for helping support Compass Coffee Talk. We're trying to bring you some entertaining education for our industry. So that's what I have. And Bill, I don't know if there's any closing or any audience. You go.
No, this is coming in right now. Yeah, I was thinking we got a couple minutes left, Pat. We could just do an open-ended question here. What do you think about the future? What's your hope for the future?
The whole future, huh?
The whole thing.
Like everyone, I have a lot of concerns about the future. I have my own children. I have a grandchild now who's 2 years old, and I think, as we all do, when this happens, you think more and more about that generational change. And I think more than ever, and it's aligned with our membership, is that we need to solve climate change, and we need to move toward regenerative organic agriculture to do that, and also to bring good food to people. It's more important than ever. But I'm positive about the future. I work with these independents every day, and everything we just talked about, that resilience and that desire to move, at the same time exhausted. And several of our members opened stores during the pandemic, and several are opening stores in the next 12 to 18 months. So there's still growth. There's still a lot of opportunity in our industry, but I think we have work to do to make it happen.
Well, you're getting kudos from Alan over there at Natural Grocers, and people calling you
our friend Alan Lewis.
Alan Lewis, and you're great. People telling us you're a great leader. So it seems like you found your spot there, and you can do some good work. And it's just super cool to have you on the show today, Pat. We're just about out of time. Steve, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, interestingly enough, Kelly Strong brings up one of the early members of the co-ops, and I do also want to call out National Co-op Grocers. Thank you for bringing that up, Pat, because between them and INFRA, those are the independents out there serving our healthy lifestyles consumers. But you bring up Weaver's Way. So my origin story is I always wanted to join that co-op because I lived in that area of Philadelphia for a number of years, and I could never join it because I was young and I couldn't afford that fee. And I'm running past it, and there's a $20 bill laying on the road in front of the co-op, right in front of me running. And I'm looking around, I don't see anybody. I pick up that $20 bill, which was the cost of membership, and I walk in and I joined. And the rest is history.
Good story.
Good origin story. That's right.
That's a good story.
Yeah, that was like 1983. So I'm very glad of the path that I've taken since then, and grateful. Pat, thank you so much for your participation today. Really, now I want to ask a couple questions. If you're an independent and you want to learn more about INFRA, you want to go to what's the website again? I wrote it down, naturalfoodretailers.net.
That's correct.
Okay. And then Alan Lewis says, and I think it's to you, call me maybe. And then, and And Steve tells me that the membership in Weaver's Way is a little more expensive today. Well, everything is, Steve Eli.
Everything.
If a brand wants to be associated, do you have associate memberships for supporting vendors, brands, any other memberships other than the retail core?
We don't right now. We have our retailer members, and then we have our associate retailers, and those are the retailers that are going through a process that can be anywhere from probably 3 months to a year to get connected to all our programs to get full membership. But I like that idea, and it's one we've had conversations about. Right now with our brands and other partners, we do more sponsorships. And if you're connected with INFRA, getting your name in front of INFRA members, of course, is what you want to do, and that's how we take that.
Cool.
Oh, well, very good. Brandon Hill says, thank you for this fantastic webinar. As a young person in this space, the story of resilience in the natural industry is inspiring. And thanks for your leadership, Pat. Brandon, thank you as a young person in this industry, next generation, for listening in, because again, one of the things we want to do is share the wisdom and experience of folks that have been in this industry for a while. Some of the things to avoid, some of the paths to take, some things to watch out for. And Pat, you've done a lot of that today. So thank you very much again.
And I would also say the next generation, definitely be involved, because we need to understand the next generation to really be to thrive in the next decade, right? So,
Agree. Very good. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Everyone, thank you so much. Bill Capsalis, my co-host and good friend as always. Thank you. Pat, I'll look forward hopefully to seeing you in Anaheim at Expo West in 2022. Yeah, so that's not too far away in the scheme of things. And everybody be well out there. Stay safe. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.